Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back for your Leo season transit update reading, as well as a collective tarot reading we will do at the end. And as always, I will have the timestamp for the tarot reading in the caption below if you want to skip right ahead to that. But as always, I highly suggest you stay for all of the transits because Leo season's jam fucking packed, people. Jam fucking packed. Usually, when I do my transit notes on the side, which by the way, that's what I'm looking at over here, the notes and the chart as we go, right? Usually when I do my transit notes, it's at most 3 pages, sometimes a little bit more, a little bit less. I got nearly 5 full pages of transit notes for Leo season. Jam fucking packed. And leave it to the luminary seasons to be these prolific, astrologically packed, impactful experiences that we will ever go through, right? Leave it to the luminaries, drama queens, all the time. I can say that as a triple Cancer myself. Heck yeah. And of course, Leo is the sun. Everybody knows Leos are dramatic. They belong in the theater. Come on now. Anyway, let's just jump right into it because, again, we got a lot to go over. So, our moon cycles that we will be moving through this Leo season. The first phase will be our Aquarius full moon, which is on July 29th at 10:36 a.m. Eastern Time. We will have our second quarter moon in Taurus at 10:21 p.m. on August 5th. Our new moon in Leo, which is an eclipse, new moon in Leo at 1:37 p.m. on the 12th of August. And then on the 19th of August, we will have our first quarter moon in Scorpio at 10:46 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, as we are transitioning, we had the Aquarius eclipses last year, and so this season between Leo and Virgo season, the moon cycles are a little bit split where I don't want to say typically because the moon cycles don't always naturally align with the Gregorian calendar or even the zodiacal calendar, right? But we usually see the eclipse seasons, the sister signs share the eclipses, right? Which is what happened last year with the Pisces Virgo axis. We also had, if I remember correctly, we had Aquarius and Leo during the winter of this year, but now we're switching over where it's going to be the Leo eclipse on the new moon to start that new moon cycle, and then the Virgo, or not the Virgo full moon, the Pisces full moon right after that will be the second eclipse of the season. So it's splitting between Leo season and Virgo season, starting with the Leo new moon. That moon cycle will usher in our eclipse season. So again, that Leo new moon is on the 12th of August, 1:37 p.m. Eastern time. And both the full moon in Aquarius and that eclipse are, the full moon in Aquarius especially has crazy aspects. Crazy aspects that we will get into as we go. And of course, I will go deeper into that during my Aquarius full moon reading, which will come in a couple weeks. You'll see it there. Maybe even a week after this. I don't know exactly when I'll post this, but you know what's coming. You know to keep a lookout for it. But let's get right into it. Sun's in its domicile. Heck yeah, we're moving from the moon in its domicile during that new moon in Cancer, ushering us into Leo season where the sun is in its domicile, and the sun moves into Leo at 3:13 p.m. Eastern time on the 22nd of July. And on that same day, as soon as the moon ushers it, or as soon as the sun ushers itself into Leo, the sun will directly square Chiron, which is at 0 degrees Taurus. It will directly quincunx the north node and semi-sextile the south node, which will be at 0 degrees Pisces and Virgo, respectively. And then the moon will be in Scorpio, which already has us like in those depths, in those feels. And with the new, or not the new moon, with the moon being in Scorpio as we usher ourselves into Leo season, it puts an extra emphasis on that fixed sign energy, right? So we don't always have a moon matching the modality of the sun as it transitions seasons, but this time around we have that extra fixed sign energy. So there's this greater sense of like rigidity to Leo season that we're moving into. And Leos, again, they are dramatic. They are also they can be stubborn and set in their ways as a fixed sign. They think that the way they do things is the right way, and they like to guide people along the trajectory that works for them. And they don't really like to be swayed away from that. They can be, but it's like a push-pull dynamic where it's almost like you have to force them into seeing the broader scope rather than just seeing their way as the only way to do things. And with Scorpio also as a fixed sign, again, we're entering Leo season with a bit more rigidity, especially that we compared to what we saw in Cancer and even Gemini season, just looking at the moon cycles. The last couple moon cycles with the Sagittarius full moon, the Gemini new moon, the Capricorn full moon, and the Cancer new moon, they like told their own story of this like, oh, this thing's now in my awareness. Now that this thing's in my awareness, I'm seeing how this thing is shifting the dynamic of this aspect of my life, or maybe my whole life in general. And now that now I'm aware of this thing and I'm seeing the patterns of how this thing is altering the trajectory of what I'm doing and where I'm going, I now have the choice to stick with business as usual or change my trajectory to go towards something that is more aligned to me because I now see that this thing really isn't aligned to me. But it's easier to stick with this trajectory rather than making the choice to change the default. And then the Cancer new moon was okay, I became aware of this thing. I saw the patterns of how it's adjusting my behavior or maybe this thing in my life. I made the choice, Capricorn full moon, to step away from that or just continue down that path, whatever. You made the choice, whatever that choice is. And now that I made the choice, the Cancer new moon represented this like this becoming in a way, this like pivot, this reset is a good word for it. This reset where it's like you're kind of in this weird in between space where even if everything physically still looks the same, this is no longer your trajectory. So it's like your body and your mind and your spirit and everything is trying to realign itself so that you can embody who you need to be, what you need to do in order to walk this new path that you're walking on. And for a lot of us, it's like this new path isn't even new. This new path is like it's been built into us. It's just that maybe we couldn't see it because we were so focused on this. But that Sagittarius full moon energy brought the awareness to then have the Gemini new moon see the patterns, which led to the understanding that we thought this was it, but now we see we thought wrong. That there's a lot more, not only for us, but for what we're meant to do in this earth. And then again, the Capricorn full moon was the choice to move a different direction. Cancer new moon was the reset. And now we're walking into Leo season. So I think the rigidity of this with the Scorpio, the abundance of fixed energy as we move into it. And again, with the 0 degrees immediately squaring Chiron, our asteroid of our deepest wounds and our greatest efforts to heal them. And then the North and the South node, what we're leaving behind with the South node and what we're moving towards with the North node. And if I remember correctly, the very end of Leo season ends with the sun conjoining the South node at 29 degrees Leo on the last day, in the last hours of Leo season. So the sun is starting with the semi-sextile with the South node, which semi-sextiles, they're not very strong aspects because it's pretty much, it's a half of a sextile, and a sextile is already half of a trine. So it's a positive, it's a cohesive energy that it's moving with, but it's very minor. It's a minor aspect for that reason. But moving from a semi-sextile with the South node, and this sense of like rigidity, it's like there's a slight energetic coherence to this new path that you're aligning to, where it's like there's an energy that allows you to have a bit more mobility in moving away from the South node, in moving away from the past, your other path, the things that you may have mastered already, the things you're used to, the things you're comfortable with. There's a harmonious energy helping you walk away from that at the beginning of Leo season, where at the end of Leo season it's a conjunction. And the South node's no longer at 0 degrees in Virgo, it's in 29 degrees Leo by the end of Leo season. Both 0 and 29 are critical degrees, but at least with the 0 degrees, they're in separate signs. The South Node is finishing a transition in Virgo while the Sun semi-sextiles it, and then immediately, well, not immediately, but once it transitions and then once Leo season ends, that's the start of a brand new cycle when the Sun comes to join that. So the Sun joining the South Node after it semi-sextiles and has that like, okay, this energy is helping me and my outward expression move away from what I am destined to leave behind. It's gonna highlight by the end of Leo seasons, it's gonna highlight all of the things you have walked away from and how all of the things you have walked away from are helping you usher into this new cycle. But it's also almost going to be like a challenge, a choice point, where if you go back to the Capricorn full moon again, you made the choice to either walk away or stay. If you made the choice to stay during the Capricorn full moon, the end of Leo season is going to highlight maybe either the fact that it was the right choice to stay or all of the things that you are now feeling tension with. It's going to illuminate the choice. Whatever choice you made, that's going to be illuminated by the end of Leo season, for better or for worse. And it's your job, it's really up to you to not stray away from what is being highlighted. Because in a way, it's destiny. Because not only is the Sun conjoining the South Node by the end of Leo season, it's also opposing the North Node. Your outward expression, it's going to want to cling to what's familiar. It's going to want to cling to the comfortable. It's going to want to cling to the warmth. Because if it's opposing the sun, this is as far away from the sun as it can get, the North Node. This is not warm. This is not bright. This is not illuminated. This is not highlighted. But this is your destined path. And if you can make the conscious choice, because the sun is also consciousness, if you can make the conscious choice to choose the harder decision, away from the warmth, away from the comfort, away from what you know, in order to go as far away from the sun as possible into that darkness, If you could make that hard choice while you are being illuminated and almost like swayed back to the idea of comfort, it's going to be a lot. Every choice after that is going to be a lot easier to walk towards. Every choice after that is going to be a lot easier. Because this is as far away. This is as tense as you can get, like two sides of a rubber band, as tense as you can get. And again, this is the last day of Leo season, the end of Leo season. So we jumped ahead a little bit, but you know what? This is as tense as you can get with the sun opposing the north node. The south node's going to feel really warm and cozy. If you can make that tough decision to go step away from the warm and cozy, to go towards the darkness, the unknown, the destiny, that's the hardest part. That's the hardest choice you'll make. And then after that, it's just walking the path to get there. And again, I think that's more for the people who during the Capricorn full moon made the choice to stay. Because if you already made the choice to go and you've already been pivoting and you've already been going along this path, and even if it's just making like these micro changes in your day-to-day life to align to that destiny, because oh, you know what, I really don't want to do that thing today, but I know if I do it, then I'll have free time tomorrow to do this thing, and then you're setting yourself up for success already. So by the time the sun highlights that south node at the end of Leo season, it's just going to be like, oh, it'll be like a nice check-in, like, oh, this is what I did leave behind. This is the idea. Like, if I, like, this is the new cycle that's being started, but like, I have a clear vantage point. So rather than this new destiny feeling so far away, like, you'll still feel the tension of where you've been and where you're going, but it'll be easier because you've already made the choice. The conscious awareness is already pointing and facing that north node direction if you've already made that choice to go there. So it's kind of just highlighting the things you're leaving behind or have already left behind and the ways in which you're better off. And maybe that's what it's going to be for some of you too. It'll be like, oh, this is the south. You'll everything will be brighter around the south node, but you'll no longer feel resonant to it. And it'll be like a moment of celebration where it's like it's almost like the Six of Cups energy, right? Where you're reminiscing and you're grateful for it, and but after the Six of Cups in the tarot comes the Seven of Cups, where if you let yourself ruminate and not ruminate, but reminisce for too long, it only causes confusion. It only causes confusion and like a disconnect from the forward movement you're meant to make, which eventually leads to the Eight of Cups, which is going away. It's leaving something you know is good to go towards something you know is better. Even if you don't know what this better is, it's you're walking away for a reason. That's kind of the energy I'm getting with the sun in the south node. And again, we went from the first day to the very last day, and we still got stuff to talk about for the first day. So again, sun moves into Leo at 3:13 p.m. Eastern time on the 22nd, squaring Chiron, quincunx, and semisextile the north node and the south node, while the moon is in Scorpio. On top of that, we'll still have the cradle energy, which is still going to be very potent. The cradle will have station direct, or exact, I should say, on the 19th of July, so just 3 days before. So we'll still have Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, and Jupiter all still at 4 degrees. So we're still in that cradle energy. Still in that cradle energy. On top of that, Juno will still be on top of Pluto at 4 degrees, which again, I'm not going to talk too much into this. I made a huge video about it on my TikTok. Go check that out, Radius of Aurora, if you want more information. It's on my astrology playlist. But the cradle brings us into this feeling of like, when we think of cradles, we think of babies, we think of childhood, we think of dreams, we think of this liminal space of being a baby and not being able to take care of yourself, but also just like having your entire life ahead of you, right? But with these outer planets involved in it, and with Juno, mythologically speaking, Juno is the wife of Jupiter. But Juno is joining up with Pluto, who is Hades, who is Jupiter's brother, right? Juno and Pluto are together, both retrograde, so both of them are both of them are flowing in the same direction to oppose Jupiter, who is Juno's wife. Jupiter is moving forward, so in a way they are kind of going towards one another because Jupiter has not yet stationed retrograde here, but they're kind of going towards one another. But the way I see it, the fact that these are both retrograde and Jupiter is moving forward, it's almost like they're going towards each other for a clash collision, right? Clash collision. Yeah, that's right. And the opposition again, going back to that idea, it's like two rubber bands where it's just like two sides trying to push both in the other direction. And it's Jupiter's wife opposing Jupiter in the sign of Aquarius, just days before the North Node moves into Aquarius and the South Node moves into Leo. And again, the South Node represents what was, what has been, and what we are moving away from to embody the North Node. The structure of at least the Western world as we see it really took root while Pluto and the South Node were together, or Pluto and the North Node, excuse me, were together in Leo during World War II. I have a whole other video on my YouTube on this channel if you want to go check that out about Pluto through Pluto and the North Node through the signs throughout history. But the foundations of the Western world as we know it were truly not only established but really embedded. It took its roots while Pluto and the North Node were together in Leo. The patriarchal structure has been around since Rome, let's be honest, but the current capitalistic and now like post-capitalistic place we are existing in now really, really set its roots deep into the soil during Pluto and the North Node in Leo. So we're now moving, now that the South Node's in Leo and Pluto's in Aquarius, opposite where it was when that structure was formed, and Pluto is with Jupiter's wife to oppose the structure that implemented the patriarchal standard that we see today. Not implemented, but really, you know what I mean, made it prominent. Meanwhile, we also have Uranus and Neptune, making sextiles slash trines to both Jupiter and Pluto. Uranus is Saturn's father. Neptune's another trickster. Neptune's about deception and delusions. Neptune is also going to be retrograde. Uranus is not going to be retrograde yet. Uranus stations retrograde September 6th, so during Virgo season. I think the main focus here is that we are seeing the beginning stages of the collapse of the patriarchal structure. Jupiter is in Leo to embody the sign that represents, and with the South Node, to embody the sign and the energy that represents everything we need to be moving away from. And Jupiter makes things bigger. His wife is directly opposing Jupiter in the sign of the collective, in the sign of the water barrier, Aquarius, with Pluto, which is the planet of death and destruction, in order to usher in transformation and rebirth just before the North Node joins the both of them. The North Node is what we're moving towards as a collective. Uranus and Gemini, unexpected change in the youngest trickster of the zodiac. Aquarius is the oldest air trickster of the zodiac. Pisces is also the oldest trickster, period, of the zodiac. Leo season, this cradle aspect is going to be the beginning of the end. The beginning of the end. This is going to amplify all throughout the North Node and the South Node through Aquarius and Leo, which I believe they change signs again in 2028. I think mid-year 2028, if I remember correctly. So these next couple years, there's going to be a lot of destruction because Pluto is also with the North Node in Aquarius now. The way we saw the foundation, the way we saw war plant the seeds of this individualistic, capitalistic agenda, this patriarchal structure that we have been living with like blindfoldedly. We've just been going business as usual because it has worked up until the more recent decades when technology has been introduced. It was almost like everybody was too ignorant to do anything about it. And now Aquarius also represents technology in its own right. Same with Uranus, and Uranus is in Gemini, which is about communication. So this Leo season, it's going to be the beginning of the end. But trust, I've been saying this these last couple videos, trust that even if all you see is fires and chaos and brimstone and wrath, if all you see externally, at least like collectively on the grand scale, if all you see is turmoil, trust that the forest needs to burn down before it can regrow anew. But the cycle must always turn. Trust that we'll make it through. Hold that vision, hold that vision, hold that vision. On top of all of that, on the first day, this first day is geometric as fuck. The Sun, Chiron, and the nodes all at 0 degrees. The cradles, so Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, Jupiter, and Juno all at 4 degrees. We'll have Venus at 14 degrees Virgo, quincunx Saturn at 14 degrees Aries, Mercury retrograde 16 degrees Cancer, semi-sextile Mars at 16 degrees Gemini, and then Lilith is going to be at 23 degrees Sagittarius, trining Vesta at 23 degrees Aries. This is geometric. This is alignment. This is the beginning of the end. And we're already 20 minutes in right now. So rather than, again, I usually do it day by day by day. I did it a little bit differently for Cancer season, if I remember correctly, too. But Mercury does station direct on the 23rd. So just about 25 hours after the sun moves into Leo, Mercury stations direct in Cancer. Lilith is still trining Vesta. They're moving together at 24 degrees. And then Vesta is going to be in conjunction with Eris pretty much most of Leo season after that. Vesta is the asteroid which represents our sacred flame, our devotional spirit, the devotion we show ourselves, and our spiritual practice. And again, our spirit in general. Whether I think if you're on this page, you consider yourself a spiritual person, but whether you do or not, that indomitable nature, that sacred flame that never goes out, that eternal flame that never goes out. So that's that devotion to self within us. That's Vesta joining Eris, the goddess of chaos. Eris has been playing a huge role as all of these planets have moved through Aries throughout this whole year. Chiron passed her over, all of like the sun, all of the planets have, not all of the planets, but a lot of the planets have passed over Eris or have been making direct aspects with Eris, which has allowed the walls of the structured reality, just personally speaking, for us on a personal level, to crumble through chaotic means, through chaotic measures. But in this way, it's chaos being used as a tool. Because if the oppressor has been using like mental chaos and confusion in order to oppress the collective as a whole, Eris is giving us that opportunity to use the chaos as a tool for our own embodiment, our own awakening, our own coming to terms and understanding with who the fuck we are and what we can do about who we are. Because remember, we've talked a lot about the quintile aspects throughout the new and the full moons in the last couple readings too. Quintiles awaken those gifts within us, but sometimes we can't do anything about those gifts until we're aware of the gifts within us. And sometimes the only way we can be aware of the true power of our being, the true gifts that we have and hold and harness within us, the only way we can be aware of them sometimes is when everything goes to shit. When this comfortable life that we've been living burns the fuck down. That's when we discover not only the indomitable spirit of our nature, but what we're actually capable of. And that's kind of the energy that Eris has been playing. So when Vesta joins up with Eris, again, for most of Leo season, Vesta joining up with Eris, our devotional spirit coming into union with the goddess of chaos and discord. How can you utilize your devotion to self to use chaos as a tool? Use chaos as a way to show devotion to yourself. Use discord as a way to show devotion to yourself and your path moving forward. So while all of this other stuff is going on at the beginning and throughout Leo season, we also have those two together, which they're both asteroids, so they're not very in your face, but they're playing a significant role in the background. And on top of that, in Aries, in a fire sign, Vesta is the flame. Chaos can also be a flame. Chaos is a ladder, right? Shout out Littlefinger. Chaos can also be a flame. Chaos is the forest fire. While we're in Leo season, also a fire sign ruled by the sun, a giant ball of fire. While Lilith is in Sagittarius, a fire sign, the eldest of the fire signs, and Lilith embodying the repression of the dark divine feminine, right? There's a lot of fire energy, and it's all showing us the ways we can utilize this fire as a tool for self-embodiment, for self-awareness, for self-becoming, and so we can discover our gifts not just for ourselves, but to utilize as a whole, like for the collective. And this whole time, Lilith is also going to be making a trine to that Eris, the Eris Vesta conjunction. So they're harmonious. They're working together really well. And triangles are the most stable shape. They're setting up the base for when the sun goes into that grand trine, which does happen later. We'll get to that in a minute. Actually, we'll get to it right now. When does the sun make that grand trine? On the 18th, the day before the first quarter moon in Scorpio. So late hours of the 17th, and then the day of the 18th, depending on where you are in the world. The sun is going to come into a grand trine with Lilith, with Vesta, and Eris, and then the sun. There's also another grand trine just a couple days before that, if I remember correctly. That's the eclipse. I think it's with, yeah, at 22 degrees. Oh, so it's not a grand trine because it only involves the sun and Pallas, but that in itself, Pallas is strategic. Pallas is planning. Pallas is Athena. Pallas is wisdom. Athena, she is the wisest. She is the weaver. She weaves strategy to guarantee victory in war specifically. Sun, and it's at 22 degrees. The sun is at 22 degrees Leo. Pallas will be at 22 degrees Aries. The kill or be killed degree in degree theory. Meaning, there's a lot of energy behind the 22. I have a couple 22s in my own chart. There's a lot of energy behind the 22, behind the 22nd degree. And if you don't utilize that energy to its greatest capacity, to its highest advantage, somebody else will see that within you and use you for that energy. So it's not literally you're going to become a murderer or be murdered. It's either you own it and embody that power, or somebody else is going to own it and embody it for you, using you as a puppet almost. That's what that degree means. So we have the sun in Leo at 22 degrees and then Pallas Athena at 22 degrees Aries. Utilize that strategy. And of course, with the sun being our external identity, utilize that strategy. Shine brightly. Figure out ways that you can shine, especially a couple days. It's 3 days before the grand trine with Lilith and the asteroids, Vesta and Eris and the sun. That's a perfect day to utilize the strategy of and what's Mercury doing that day? Mercury, of course, Mercury the same fucking day. Mercury the same fucking day is going to conjoin Leo at 10 degrees Leo. Or sorry, is going to conjoin Jupiter at 10 degrees Leo. Making things bigger. Jupiter expands everything it touches. Mercury is our intellect. Mercury is our pattern recognition. Mercury is the way we communicate. Mercury is also a trickster. How can you utilize this trickster energy for your benefit? How can you utilize this expansive mental trickster energy to strategize ways in which you can shine brightly into the world that maybe is a little bit different than what you're used to? That's maybe a little bit bigger than what you're used to. Maybe it's a little bit uncomfortable, the fact that it's so much bigger than what you're used to. But there's a way you can utilize all of this energy as a way to amplify your external expression, ground and anchor into a strategic plan just days before the sun moves into that grand trine with Lilith, Vesta, and Eris together. Three very potent and prominent aspects of the goddess energy within all of us. Lilith is the repressed, the dark goddess. Eris is the chaos, and Vesta is the devotion. Coming together with the sun, which is considered like the masculine, whatever. So we start Leo season with this cradle, with June, the beginning of the end, essentially. Juno opposing her husband, saying matrimony's fucking bullshit, fuck the patriarchy, we're burning this shit down. And then it's like this more healthy expression of masculine ideals, right? I don't love the masculine and feminine definitions, but you know what I mean? Especially in a society that is still patriarchal, it's important that we at least acknowledge them, right? The sun coming together in that grand trine with Lilith, Eris, and Vesta. That's like the sun bringing illumination to three aspects of the goddess of the feminine that have not been awoken in a very long time. The sun's bringing illumination to that. The sun's letting them shine after the more we'll call it the more patriarchal expression of the masculine is starting to become undone. And again, while the sun is in that trine with Pallas at 22 degrees, Mercury, who is androgynous, Mercury is neither male nor female. Mercury, who is androgynous, is coming together with Jupiter. So it's almost as if Mercury coming together with Jupiter while the sun is making that trine with Pallas Athena, Mercury coming together with Jupiter is like, I mean, I don't know. I'm not like if when dudes are doing locker room talk, right? And they're all like, yeah, yeah, it's so funny, blah, blah, blah. And then there's that one guy that's like, hey, that's actually kind of fucked up. Maybe we shouldn't be talking about women like that. Maybe we should respect them. That's the energy I'm getting with Mercury coming together with Jupiter in the middle of Leo season while the sun is trining Athena, or Pallas, excuse me. After Jupiter's wife, I should say, already blatantly opposed her husband with her brother to represent death and transformation and rebirth. While the grandparents of Neptune and Uranus were kind of like supporting both sides. Like, oh, I don't want to take a side, but my energy's still going to be felt. The disillusionment, the unpredictable nature, the chaos that can come from the unpredictable things that happen. We're already at 30 minutes, and I'm just jumping around here. So, like I said, for the full moon and the new moon, those days are fucking jam-packed. But I'm not going to even touch on them in this video because you guys know I will put out the videos for both the full moon in Aquarius and the new moon eclipse in Leo. So just for sake of time, we're going to skip over that right now, but let me just scroll through these notes and see other things that are really, really relevant. There we go. I was like, that didn't sound right. Um, so like I said, the first 2 days, we already talked about the first day. Other than Mercury stationing direct on the second day, on the 23rd, we will have Lilith directly trine Vesta. Oh, we already talked about that. Jupiter is going to move out of that cradle aspect, so it's going into 5 degrees. So it's still going to be there, but it's not going to be direct on that as of that second day. We'll still have 5 other placements with at that 4 degree mark, which again, 4 degrees is also foundational in numerology. The cradle stationing exact at 4 degrees. It's foundational. It's the beginning of the end, but it's the end being a friend. It's ending to allow the new foundation to be built and leveled and structured so that it benefits everybody, which is Aquarius energy. Again, the water bearer. Oh, and so as Jupiter moves out of 4 degrees, Psyche's actually going to move into 4 degrees Leo. So that's kind of funny that it's. Oh, and Hecate is going to be at 4 degrees in Pisces as well. So Jupiter's moving out of 4 degrees, but the two asteroids are moving into 4 degrees, which is funny. And on that second day of Leo season, Pluto is going to be in a near exact sextile with Neptune, down to the minute. Pluto will be at 4 degrees and 21 minutes in Aquarius, and Neptune's going to be at 4 degrees and 23 minutes in Aries. They're both retrograde, so Neptune's actually going to catch up with Pluto in the coming days after that. So they are making an exact aspect there, which is just going to amplify the energies that they both carry. Again, with Pluto being death, transformation, rebirth, and Neptune being disillusionment, but also our spirituality. And when it's in Aries, it's like this again with the masculine, but this more masculine presenting, like this unapologetic, this like rah, like this like "Yeah, this is what I believe." Blah. But at the same time, that might be when we start seeing, and we've already started seeing it a lot. I mean, a very famous like TikTok tarot reader just said she's going back to Jesus. So we're already seeing this happen, but especially when that Pluto and Neptune, when both Pluto and Neptune retrograde station the exact aspect down to the minute, I think there's going to be some sort of very relevant, prominent, in your face expression of Christianity is the only way. You must obey God. You're going to hell. Oh my God. My throat started to close up as I said that. Oh my God. Their glamours are they're going away. Their glamours are dying, but they're still trying. So whatever. Just be aware of that. Because again, Neptune's disillusionment. Neptune's disillusionment. Be aware of the propaganda and the tactics they will use to reestablish Rome, essentially. Even though Rome never really died. It's just the Catholic fucking church. But that's my point. That's my point. Anyway, let's keep going. On the 26th of July at 9:44 in the morning, which Eastern time, but for me that's a very prominent angel number. 9:44 in the morning, the moon moves into Capricorn, and just a couple hours later at 3:56 p.m. Eastern time, Saturn stations retrograde. And that Saturn retrograde is going to be ruling over the Capricorn moon for the next 2.5 days. And on that same day, Eastern time, again, it might be the 27th for you, depending on where you are in the world. On that same day, the North Node moves into Aquarius, and the South Node moves into Leo. The North Node is also going to be ruled by that Saturn retrograde, which just stationed retrograde just a couple hours before. At the same time, we'll have Eros at 17 degrees Libra, semi-sextiling Venus at 17 degrees Virgo. Also squaring Mercury at 16 degrees Cancer. And at the same time, Moon moves into Capricorn, Saturn stations retrograde, North Node moves into Aquarius, just as the Sun is entering a very close conjunction with Jupiter. And the Sun will be exactly conjoining Jupiter on the day of the Aquarius full moon. I think it's within like 2 minutes of one another. So the Sun will be at 6 degrees and 30 minutes in Leo. Jupiter will be at 6 degrees and 26 minutes in Leo. So 4 minutes apart. That's the day of the full moon on the 29th. But when Saturn stations retrograde, while the moon is in Saturn and the North Node moves into Aquarius, the Sun is going to enter a very close, within 2 degrees, a conjunction with Jupiter. Two very prominent aspects of the masculine. While Saturn, who we consider a daddy, is stationing retrograde, just as the North Node moves into a Saturn-ruled sign, while the moon, Mother Moon, is in Capricorn, ruled by Saturn. It's not going to go down without a fight, people. It's not. And that's why I think The more conscious you can be of your choices and the decisions and your path, yourself first. You can't know your path until you know yourself because you are the path. You can't know the path until you know yourself because you are the path. But Leo season, while we are seeing the beginning of the end being ushered in, Leo seasons there's going to be a lot of in your face tricks and dupes and because at the same time, I believe that same day, the sun, or no, the next day on the 27th. So on the 26th, that's when Saturn stations retrograde, all of that. On the 27th, the sun will be at 4 degrees Leo, directly opposing Pluto and making a direct trine with Neptune. Tension between death and rebirth and transformation, and harmonious energy with disillusionment and spirituality in two masculine presenting signs, while it's opposing Pluto in the sign representing the collective. You need to know yourself so deeply. Leo, there's going to be a lot of tricks. It's like spiritual warfare. There's going to be a lot of tricks, very subtle yet in your face tricks. And that's kind of a lot of propaganda works because it is so overt that you think, surely, I can see it clearly. Yeah, you can see it, but what you're not seeing is the subtleness beneath what you see. It's insidious. And I think we're going to see a lot of that. It's a lot of like the masculine patriarchal structures fighting back, fighting against the end. But ultimately, the collective wins in the end. North Node is in Aquarius with Pluto, with Juno opposing Leo. And granted, Juno's just a tiny asteroid, but the energy here is still prominent. And then Juno moves into Capricorn during Leo season 2. And I think like Saturn turning around while all of this is happening, Saturn to me, Saturn is like Saturn is like a fatherhead, like a father figure. Saturn is father time in that aspect, and a lot of people conflate Saturn to the structure as it stands. And maybe this is me just talking rah-rah, right? But in this season, Saturn feels more like the guide who was in all the war. He was in all the wars, right? He's seen battle, he's seen bloodshed, he's seen death. He saw the rise of the structure as it stands. Maybe he even helped establish that structure, right? He knows his hands are dirty. He knows. But Saturn's also incredibly wise. Saturn takes accountability. Saturn holds himself accountable. And Saturn's energy throughout Leo season feels like that. It feels like the dude who knows he lived a pretty fucked up life and he sees now in hindsight all of the ways that his actions have directly harmed other people. That didn't have the power that he held, that didn't have the privilege that he held. And yeah, he had to work fucking hard for what he got. He had to work fucking hard for the seat of power that he earned, which allowed him to commit whatever it was he committed that directly perpetuated harm against others. He sees that now very clearly. So as Saturn stations retrograde in Leo season, it's almost like it feels like a reckoning of sorts. He's coming to terms with the ways that he helped establish the regime. But rather than being on the side that's fighting to maintain it, he's not necessarily on the side that's fighting to destroy it. Although with the North Node being in Aquarius and him ruling over that Aquarius placement, you could argue, yeah, that's what he's planning to do. You could argue that Saturn's, but I think rather than being like on the front lines of the resistance, let's say, rather than being on the front lines, he's the strategy. He's the planning. He can't get his hands dirty directly because he knows the consequences he knows the backlash he would get from the resistance for being somebody that perpetuated the standard that allowed the system to be put in place, right? He knows the backlash he would get from the resistance, and he knows the torture he would get from the empire if he were found out to be helping the resistance. So he is setting up the structure to help the resistance gain a better footing to oppose the empire. He's setting up the structure to help the resistance oppose the empire, to help them get a vantage point. But it's like, what's that word? Where it's like plausible deniability. That's kind of where he's doing things to directly help, but he has plausible deniability. I'm just doing what I need to do. I station retrograde every year. I'm just doing what I always do. While the North Node and Pluto are in Aquarius. While Juno moves into Capricorn. And I think, if I remember correctly, Lilith will also be in Capricorn by the end of Leo season. Let me see. We're very close to. Where is Lilith by the end of this? I don't think she's in Capricorn by the end of Leo season, but she's getting closer and closer. I don't have any notes. Where the heck is Leo? Or Lilith, whatever. Yeah, I don't she won't be there quite yet, but she'll be really close. Like I said, people, there's a lot. There's a lot happening this Leo season. There's a lot happening. And again, I'm going to go in depth of the full moon and the new moon when that time comes. There are just a couple more things I keep seeing that I want to touch on. Going back to that 22-degree, but this time, this will be before the sun trines Pallas at 22 degrees. It'll be Venus at 22 degrees Virgo, squaring Mars at 22 degrees Gemini. That's my Mars placement. Hello, Mars at 22 degrees Gemini. And then also quincunx. So Venus will quincunx while Mars sextiles Pallas at 22 degrees Aries. And I'll just read exactly what I wrote. The planet of action, drive, willpower, war, and accidents in the sign of the youngest air trickster. So again, that's Mars and Gemini. While Uranus also shares the same space in that same sign. Uranus is unpredictability. Uranus is things happening in ways that you cannot plan, you cannot see. But it's change. It's change. The planet of love, harmony, unity, and sensuality, Venus, in the sign of the Virgin and the harvest, Virgo, which is ruled by Mercury, which is in Cancer. Fascinating that I didn't even write that. So Venus will be in Virgo, Mars will be in Gemini. Both of those are ruled by that Cancer Mercury, which gives this a softer edge. And if I remember correctly, just a couple days later, Mercury will be at 22 degrees, where they will square Pallas. And then again, Pallas is the asteroid of strategy, planning, wisdom, and weaving. And Pallas is in the sign of war. So July 30th, the day after that full moon, be mindful of travel, with Venus and Mars both at 22 degrees being ruled by Mercury, which is short-term travel, short-term communication, destinations, that kind of thing. Be mindful of driving. Be mindful. Don't drive, like, don't be crazy. Be very mindful. Also, be careful where you're stepping to. Careful the ways you use your hands, because Gemini rules the hands. So I'm thinking like cutting, because Aries is also impulsive and the sign of war. On the 30th, be mindful. Be careful on the 30th of July. Be careful. Be mindful. Smoke a little doobie before you drive if you need to, if you have really bad road rage. Do what you got. Maybe just stay off the road that day. Because not everybody is into astrology. Not everybody knows. Not everybody's aware. So there are people that are going to be going crazy just because of the planetary energies. Be mindful. Be mindful. So again, that's the 30th, and then on the 3rd, we'll have Mercury at 22 degrees Cancer squaring Pallas. Again, mind, intellect, communication, pattern recognition, awareness in Cancer, sign ruled by the moon. A sign that also embodies sensuality in its own nature. Sensuality. I don't know if I. Anyway, it's the mother. It's the nurturing. It's the care. Squaring strategic, planning, wisdom. And then that same day that Mercury's at 22 degrees Cancer, Chiron's going to station retrograde at 0 degrees Taurus. And it's fascinating to me because Chiron makes it to the last minutes of 0 degrees before stationing retrograde. So I think it'll be what 0 degrees and 52 minutes before stationing retrograde. So it feels like Chiron camping out for a longer time, stationing retrograde at that 0 degree mark. It's just this amplification of seeing the wounds of worthiness for what they are, seeing the wounds of like your embodiment, of the ways you have not been able to connect to your body, of how you haven't been allowing yourself to live sensually and invigorate your senses. And also Taurus is the first, quote, feminine sign of the zodiac. So again, it's this amplification of the collective wounds of femininity. And how like the idea of this feminine masculine dynamic has even robbed men. of being able to tap into that sensual side of themselves, to live life through their senses, to be soft, to be nurtured, to see themselves as worthy of tapping into the quote, more feminine aspects of themselves. Camping out at 0 degrees before it will go back into Aries, and then station direct, I believe, in February of 2027. So it's going to help us, it's really going to help us come to terms with the ways in which the feminine has been repressed. And a lot of the work we still have to do as individuals and a collective in order to reclaim that aspect, reclaim that for everybody. So that's the third. Again, while Mercury is at 22 degrees Cancer, squaring Pallas at 22 degrees Aries, Chiron stations retrograde. Then on the 6th, the Sun will trine Saturn retrograde at 14 degrees Leo and Aries, respectively. And on that same day, at 3:13 p.m., fascinating, Venus moves into Libra. It's fascinating because the Sun moved into Leo, into its domicile at 3:13 p.m. Eastern Time when Leo season began. And now Venus is moving into her domicile at 3:13 p.m. Eastern Time. And I think it was for the Cancer new moon, if I remember correctly, Jupiter will be exactly at 3 degrees and 13 minutes. Yeah, I think it was the Cancer new moon. So there's something there. And I remember for the Cancer new moon video, I mentioned how 13 is the death card in the tarot and 3 is the Empress. So it's utilizing the sense of fertility and creation and abundance and harvest. Or I guess the Empress isn't really harvest, but she's like the feast that comes after the harvest, I guess. The Empress is also an embodiment of Taurus energy, who we just talked about with Chiron. So it's the Empress, this idea, this realm of creative potential, creativity, and general creation coming together with death, which is transformation. Because that number coming back up time and time again, Cancer new moon, the beginning of Leo season, and Venus moving into its domicile. Venus representing like the most quote accepted, the most like outward expression of the feminine quote aspect of ourselves. 313. These patterns. I'm telling you, Leo season's it's geometric. I just got full body chills when I said that. It's geometric. And people consider math the language of the universe. People consider math the language of the universe. Pattern recognition, sacred geometry. It's how the universe, that's how Mother Nature speaks to us. Through these patterns. So although I can't tell you exactly what it means something. I'm lit the fuck up with chills right now. It means something. Mercury moves into Leo on August 9th, where it will it'll make exact aspects, even before it moves into Leo, it'll make exact aspects to the nodes at 29 degrees. And after it moves into Leo, it'll make an exact aspect with Chiron at 0 degrees. Venus is going to make an exact sextile with Pluto at 3 degrees, Libra and Aquarius, respectively. And then that's going to be the last day that Lilith is in an exact trine with Eris. And then she moves into an exact trine with Vesta. So she had that grand trine with Eris and Vesta when they were together. Vesta moves forward beyond Eris to 26 degrees. So Lilith moves as she started with the exact conjunction with Vesta and Eris. Vesta moves up to 26 degrees. Lilith is still at 25 degrees. Eris is still at 25 degrees. When Lilith moves out of the exact conjunction with Eris, she just continues that conjunction with Vesta. So there's still this aspect of these feminine aspects working together. And as Vesta and Lilith both move past Eris, it's like that's the conclusion of utilizing chaos as a tool. It's like the idea of master, like becoming a master of chaos, right? Recognizing the ways in which the empire, the oppressor, has used chaos in order to wrought chaos and disillusionment and dissonance onto the collective. That trine, especially while the sun is involved, that trine is going to help us master the realm of utilizing chaos as a tool in order to turn those tools directly back onto the oppressor. And then once we've mastered chaos, Lilith sticks with Vesta, the repressed feminine aspects staying with the devotional flame, the devotional spirit, the devotion to self. It's mythic. It's genuinely mythic. And of course we have other things going on. I already talked about a lot of these as we went through. On the 16th, Mars will be at 3 degrees Cancer, where it will quincunx Pluto at 3 degrees Aquarius and square Neptune at 3 degrees Aries. On the 17th, Venus is going to be at 10 degrees Libra, which will sextile Jupiter at 10 degrees Leo. The Sun trining Eris at 25 degrees Leo and Aries on the 18th, and then we'll have the first quarter moon in Scorpio. And then during that first quarter moon in Scorpio, on the 19th, the Sun will directly trine Vesta at 27 degrees Leo and Aries at the time the moon stations exact, and the moon will station exactly square the Sun at the time. So if the moon is at 27 degrees Scorpio, the Sun is at 27 degrees Leo, and then Vesta is going to be at 27 degrees Aries. And I like that this is happening just as Vesta leaves that trine with Lilith and Eris, coming together with the Sun and the moon. Divine union, balance. But anyway, the moon's going to directly quincunx Vesta. There was something about quincunx that I didn't get to in here. I think it was probably for one of the moons, because I didn't even see it in here. And we end Leo season the same way we started, geometrically. On the 21st, just a day before the Sun moves into Virgo. The 21st, we have Venus at 14 degrees Libra, opposite Saturn at 14 degrees Libra. Saturn is exalted in Libra. Saturn and Venus are like really close siblings. They're like brother and sister, like older brother, younger sister. They're like really close fucking siblings. Saturn does really well in Libra. Saturn doesn't like being in Aries because it does really well in Libra, where Venus is also exalted, or where Venus is at home. Venus is the rulership, Saturn is exalted in Libra. So Venus is opposite Saturn. In a way, while there's still tension, it's almost like, again, Saturn wants to work with Venus here. Saturn is actively working with Venus here, even though he's in a place of lower rank in Aries, just because, again, Saturn doesn't like being in Aries. Knowing he's at a place of lower rank, he can almost use that opposition to his exaltation to the advantage of Venus. On the same day, on the 21st, Mercury is at 22 degrees Leo, trining Pallas at 22 degrees Aries. So Pallas is going to be at 22 degrees the entire all of Leo season. All of Leo season. At the same time, the Sun will be at 28 degrees Leo, quincunx Juno at 28 degrees Capricorn. And then later, so Juno is at 28 degrees Capricorn at the beginning of the day. Later in the day, Juno moves to 27 degrees Capricorn, where she will square Vesta and semi-sextile Lilith at 27 degrees Aries and Sagittarius, respectively. And then on the last day, again, Sun conjunct the South Node, Mercury trining Eris at 25 degrees Leo and Aries. And then leave it to Leo season to make sure the Sun is completely extinguished before moving into Virgo. The Sun moves into Virgo at 10:19 p.m. Eastern time. So I mean, I guess depending on where you are in the world. For me, it'll be dark outside. Leave it to Leo season to take up the entire day before transitioning into Virgo. Jesus. And as always with these readings, I'm going to try to flow through it as concisely as possible. Nine of Wands. With, what is that? The Seven of Swords at the bottom. This is the Tarot of the Sacred Feminine. Tarot of the Sacred Feminine. I unconsciously chose this deck because I almost picked up my Grateful Dead deck, and then I saw this one at the last second. I was like, no, I gotta use this one. After everything we talked about for Leo season, this makes sense. This is Isis. Oh no, this is Hathor. Isis or Hathor? I think. Oh, I want to say Hathor because of the head, because of the headpiece, but I'm pretty sure this is Isis and Horus. Uh, I don't know who that is, but she's a baddie. Nine of Wands, Seven of Swords. And then the Wheel of Fortune underneath the Seven of Swords. As I was about to say, this feels like the Nine of Wands, Seven of Swords. Nine of Wands is like being suspicious. The Nine of Wands is the energy of like the battle is over, but the war has not yet been won. Jesus fucking Christ. The battle is over, but the war has not yet been won. And this goes with that. Three of Pentacles reversed, Five of Wands upright. Seven of Swords upright, Nine of Wands upright. This energy to me, especially with the Wheel of Fortune coming out, this energy feels like how the structure as it stands, it's seeing that it's seeing the lack of power it's now holding. And I know some of you watching that might be like, oh yeah, you're just seeing what you want to see, but like that's what this feels like. Especially after everything we've talked about. Oh my god, is that Justice fucking fell on the floor? No, that's the Chariot. Not Justice, but still. The Chariot fell on the fucking floor, upright. The Chariot fell on the fucking floor, upright. This feels like there's this the system itself is embodying this element of like suspicion and feeling like there's deception and deceit. And the Seven of Swords in the Rider-Waite in the traditional tarot, the Seven of Swords is the one that shows that man sneaking into the enemy camp, like just either at dawn or at night, whatever, sneaking into the enemy camp the night before a battle, stealing nearly all of their weaponry, and then walking away like looking all smug, like, hey, hey, got you now, guys. So I like the Seven of Swords, A, because there is this element of like stealth and deception. But B, I like it because it's this idea that I am risking my own life by sneaking into this enemy camp. But if I'm successful with what I'm about to do, what I'm planning on doing, if I make it out of there successfully, there can be no battle tomorrow. We might be able to still go forth, but it'll be a slaughterhouse, right? And when it comes to war, at least in the ancient times when these gods and goddesses roamed the earth, when it came to war, it wasn't just about the slaughter. Rome introduced that idea of like, take them at all costs, right? It wasn't just about the slaughter. There was strategy, there was still respect between the two sides that were battling. And so the guy who was at the camp that stole the other enemy's weapons, he could have gone back and be like, yeah, we're gonna fucking destroy them now. But the idea to me is that, the battle was actually canceled, postponed. They found a way to talk it out, strategically speaking, with Pallas at 22 degrees the all of Leo season. They decided to find a different strategy where the side that lost their weaponry were forced to compromise, were forced to give in some capacity to this side. So this side was still a winner, right? But because of the brave actions of one individual, which yeah, he had to go into self and be deceptive and everything, but the brave decision to sneak into that camp to steal the weaponry saved thousands of lives. Thousands of lives. So when we have this concept of the Nine of Wands coming together with the Seven of Swords, the system itself is feeling paranoid and petrified, where it feels like it still feels like it's winning, right? It still feels like it's on top, but it's looking over its shoulder every 3 seconds. Here's a twig like break in the distance. I was like, what the fuck was that? Is that an animal? Who is that? Who's that? They're terrified. They're terrified because they know there's this element of deception, which going back to Eris and Vesta conjoining one another, making that trine with Lilith, they know that the collective with Pluto and soon the North Node being in Aquarius, they know the collective is catching on. They know the wheel is fucking turning. They know the wheel is fucking turning, and their own time is beginning to adjourn and ing. Anyway, they know the wheel is fucking turning. That's why they're so fucking paranoid. Because people are catching on. The collective is catching on. They're recognizing the ways in which the structures have used chaos, have used deception, have used full trickery and propaganda to put this blanket of like glamour magic over the collective in order to be as successful as it is, or as it has been. Period. Words matter. They're using this, they're recognizing now that we are mastering the same games that they have used against all of us for generations. We've become the students. We've become the students. And with the Five of Wands, too, is that and that's the sun underneath the Five of Wands. Three of Pentacles reversed. The powers and systems that used to help hold up the system as it stands are collapsing. They don't have the same help they used to. Going back to what I was saying about Saturn, the people who have recognized they themselves had a direct hand in not only forming the foundation and building the structure as it stands, but maintaining it. People who have seen the ways in which the structure has caused direct harm to others, they're turning their back on the fucking structure. The help they used to have with ease, the friends they used to have that helped them maintain the structure, they're gone. They're gone. Two of Cups reverse was under the Three of Cups upright. Their partnerships have fucking abandoned them. They've been abandoned. The Five of Wands upright. And now all of this petty quarrelsome, like there's a pettiness, there's an energy of infighting that's getting nowhere. That's not based in strategy. This is Sekhmet, by the way. Not based in strategy. And Sekhmet, if you know the stories, if you know the story of Sekhmet, 1 second. We're both drinking. Sekhmet was sent to Egypt as a way to get the collective under control. Sent by, who was Sekhmet? Sent by one of the higher gods. It's escaping my brain. But essentially, they wanted to get the collective under control. There was a lot of infighting going on. So Sekhmet was sent to kind of be a harbinger of fear, to get the collective to get into line, get into place, utilizing fear and violence. But then her bloodlust, as you can see, she's drinking from the river of blood. But I mean, that's part of the story. But still, her bloodlust got so fucking crazy, she could not be tamed. She just started killing everyone and everything in her path, and nothing would stop her. Nothing would stop her. So the god that sent her down, I wish I remember. Was it Ra? It must have been Ra. We're gonna say Ra. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Ra was like, we need to find a way to stop her. So again, this thirst for blood, this thirst for violence, Ra sent a river of red wine, making it look and smell like blood, so that she would be distracted from her fighting to go literally drink the blood from the river. And then she got so drunk she fucking passed out, and then the gods took her back to be contained, right? So she couldn't continue this path of bloodlust for no goddamn good reason. But she's a goddess that represents warfare because of that, of unnecessary violence because of that. But with the Five of Wands in the Rider-Waite Tarot deck, the Five of Wands just shows like five dudes with sticks, like all trying to fight each other, but none of the sticks are actually hitting one another. Nobody's making landfall. And again, it's just like this petty infighting that's getting nobody nowhere. Because the friendships and the allies have abandoned the cause. The friendships and the allies have abandoned the cause. This was underneath of that one too. To go towards something that's more fulfilling and more harmonious and more rooted in Mother Nature. More rooted in truth. Because Mother Nature is the truth. This system is not. And again, the sun was underneath the Five of Wands. The sun represents liberation. The sun represents leaving the rigid walls and rigid structures that have been in place for a very long time in order to go beyond those walls, because you're now recognizing the walls never kept you safe. The walls were implemented to keep you in. And there's an entire world beyond those walls. Sun represents you finally stepping beyond those walls to go explore the world around you. To go learn about other cultures. To be more accepting of what you find and what you experience. Fascinating. So we also, when the chariot fell out onto the floor, we also had the Page of Swords reversed, the Four of Pentacles upright, and the Four of Cups upright. Four of Pentacles and Four of Cups alike, this represents holding on to things you know you no longer need. Being stubborn about what's being presented to you, being stubborn about the truth, refusing to see the truth of your circumstances, to accept something that's maybe you don't want in the moment, but you know it'll be beneficial to you and everybody else involved. You're refusing to accept that because you're being stubborn about what you want. And sometimes you could say, yeah, it's because they know what they want and they're not going to settle. But these two energies together, not only are you stubbornly refusing what's being handed to you, the evident truth that's being presented, you're also stubbornly holding on to outdated modes of existence. You're stubbornly holding on to systems that are ready to, have been ready to implode, that are actively imploding. This message isn't for you individually. This message is like a, again, with the chariot. This message is a divine omen that tells us this Leo season is the beginning of the end. Starting Leo season with the cradle and all of those other placements making geometric aspects to one another. Ending Leo season with all of those placements making geometric aspects to one another and the sun directly conjoining the south node. And I'm telling you, look out, especially for the Aquarius full moon video, but also for the Leo new moon eclipse video. Look out for those videos because these days are fucking mythic. And following Cancer season, which was mythic in itself, it's just, I have no words. I have no words. The cards kind of set it off for me, right? And I love these two together, the chariot and the sun. These two together are ushering rebirth. This is rebirth being ushered in. Divinity, or divinely, I should say, by divinity. Rebirth being ushered in to help liberate the collective from the walls of the oppressor. A grackle, and then a raven, and then a cardinal. One by one, flew onto this bush that I have in my front yard. A berry bush, but the berries aren't in season yet. Getting there though, I see the flowers. That in itself is metaphoric. That in itself is the berries aren't there yet, but they're getting there. I see the flowers. And what did I say in the Cancer New Moon video? Sometimes the seeds of war, the roots of war, can sprout flowers of harmony and peace and justice and unity. That's it. I love y'all. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being here. And happy Leo season. Chills again. I'll see you for that full moon Aquarius reading. Inward, onward, and upward, my dears. Love y'all.